Programming Throwdown, episode number 3, Erlang. Take it away, Jason.
Hey, how's it going? So we're in a live setting today, which is different. Usually this is over Skype, but today we're here playing some board games, hanging out over at my place. So we decided to use the Omni mic, which looks awesome.
Yeah, it does. It looks pretty cool. Yeah. Makes you feel like a real radio personality, right?
Yeah, in Mars, in the future.
Future Martian radio. Yeah. Nice.
I'm still convinced that Patrick bought this at a pawn shop in the future.
Nice. All right. Well, you got any news for us?
So probably one of the biggest things that has come out is the ISO standard on C++. Came out, was it March 28th? And this kind of finalizes what's been C++ OX, which is now C++ 2011. And it has a bunch of different additions. We talked a little bit about C earlier, and we might do a show on C++ later on. And one of the biggest things is this adds a lot of kind of the features of higher level languages, like some memory management. So it has an auto pointer and a shared pointer, and it really has a lot of awesome features that will make C++ programming a lot easier. I mean, C++ right now still dominates most of the industrial software world. So something like this is big news.
Yeah, unfortunately, I guess they missed their deadline with the OX thing, and now they have to call it 011.
Yeah, that's right.
X was not just a one character, I guess. It was actually two. But yeah, I mean, that's a big deal. So it'll probably take a few years before it starts working its way into the mainstream compilers and stuff. But
yeah, so it's already in, I think, GCC, in the latest version of Visual Studio.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, by the time by the time those actually become adopted by corporations, I mean, there are some companies that are still using GCC 2.9, so
yeah, or Visual Studio 2005.
Yeah, that's right. So by the time people move on to using GCC, was it 4.5? I think is the one with C++ 2011 or Visual Studio 2010. It's probably going to be, like you said, 5 years from now at least.
Something to look forward in the future with our better radio equipment.
Yeah, that's right.
And our better C++ compilers.
Yeah, definitely.
All right, well, I had a news story that is solved this week about Google hiring the inventor of Java, the guy who actually holds some of the patents there and worked for Sun, now Oracle, on creating the Java language. And they hired him to work on Android, which, of course, Android runs a Java virtual machine, the Dalvik virtual machine, their own version, own implementation of it. And additionally are being presently sued by Oracle in regards to some patent infringement that's alleged there. And so they hired this guy who's really key to the invention of Java. And there's some speculation about exactly what they were thinking there. One, to obviously make the Dalvik virtual machine better. Get the guy who is in the know, get him there, get him working on it. Make it just better. And also this guy is pretty well respected. Java is very popular, very commonly used, and it's he's kind of a star. So his name is escaping me right now, but I mean basically he is able to
James Gosling.
Okay, James. Yeah. So but I mean him being in Google now is going to mean people are going to want to go work at Google. Not that they're of want of people wanting that work there any more than they already do, but now they're going to recruit even more top talent to go work there and want to work next to Mr. Gosling there and be with this kind of, I guess, rock star.
Yeah, I think that maybe one of the VPs at Google, is getting programming language inventors a little confused with Pokemon because he's trying to collect every single one of them.
Gotta catch them all.
Got Guido for Python and now James Gosling. And, the guy who invented Go already worked at Google, the Go programming language. So yeah, it's kind of an interesting...
So they're forming maybe they're cornering the market on new programming languages.
Yeah, it's quite possible. This is going to make life difficult for us. Or maybe not, who knows? But we want to do a different programming language every 2 weeks. And if Google buys them all, hopefully they won't consolidate them. Hopefully we'll continue.
Maybe make a diversity, get them working on new languages.
Yeah.
That would be cool.
Yeah, definitely.
Good stuff. Talking about Google,
Yeah, well, actually, one thing, relating to what you were just talking about, it's interesting that patents are becoming more and more of an issue, and Google seems to be getting sued left, right, and center over different patents. They're getting sued over, their search engine, which is, not necessarily patent related, but they're getting sued over this patent issue with Sun, and they're right now the highest bidder on Novell's patents. So basically, Novell's broken apart, and they're selling different pieces of that organization. And Google explicitly is out to buy the patents. And from what I read on their blog, they don't necessarily have an interest in the specific patents they're buying, but for them it's sort of like this Cold War where everyone needs to stockpile these nuclear patents, and whoever has the most, can kind of threaten and boss everyone else around. And Google feels like they're getting kind of bossed around since they're a newer company. So they're trying to, acquire these patents. And there really needs to be some serious patent reform. I mean,
yeah,
what do you
I
think
agree.
about
that? Patents are a good thing, I mean, in general, but when they're improperly applied, it can be disastrous. And I think this is kind of getting there with computer programming, and some of the stuff that they got going on in computer patents is just, some of it's pretty ridiculous, and it's going to cause more harm than good. And like you said, I agreed the Cold War analogy is fairly apt, I guess. That, mutually assured destruction. So if Google buys up all of Novell's patents, then we'll find something in there to sue anybody who tries to sue them.
Exactly.
And it's just kind of a go around and around and around. And we're not lawyers, or at least
Oh no,
I'm not. But
don't take this as
legal
advice.
But definitely, I mean, it's an interesting thing. And in the end, lawyers win, right? Get more money to go after more people and file more suits.
Yeah.
But hopefully there's some silver lining for the programmer somewhere, that world will be a better place because of all of this.
Yeah, I mean, I've always been a fan of of course, this doesn't work in too many companies, but some of companies have adopted the philosophy of sort of catch me if you can. Like they're on the cutting edge, and this is basically the premise behind, commercial open source, is the idea that you put something out in the open, and by doing so, you take a product and turn it into a standard. So like OpenGL, for example, is a standard versus DirectX, which is a product. And so Google's done with this with many different technologies. The GUnit, the Google Unit Test Framework, for example, that's just a framework that they could have tried to market to enterprise companies. But now they've published it open source, and so many people have jumped on it that it's become a standard. And now they are sort of in charge of that, and they can kind of mold that, and they can also act as an advisor for that, in a commercial setting. But yeah, I mean, the patent thing, there's so many people who don't subscribe to that catch me if you can philosophy and want to sort of, actually own things that they have researched for an extended amount of time.
Yeah, it's hard. I see both sides of it, but I mean, I think most people agree, even outside of software and technology patents, the patent system is kind of problematic right now, and
right.
a lot of issues going on there. And well, I guess at some point maybe we can have a longer discussion about this, a more intelligent, or maybe get somebody on it to talk to us a little bit more about the intricacies that lie there.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's a good idea. So
my previous transition failed
ahead.
when I said that, I was and talking about Google. We had Google hires inventor Java, and Google sponsoring a code jam. What's that? What's a code jam?
Yeah,
is that what's between your fingers when you do a lot of coding?
That's what's in between, like the fingernail. You know how sometimes the keys, they start to scratch off, and they end up kind of between your fingernail.
Or what gets down between the keys when you're eating your sandwich and typing?
Yeah, that's right. That is definitely code jam. We want to avoid that. But this particular code jam is actually a programming contest, and so this is quite interesting. There's several contests like this. So for you guys who are still in college, or even in high school, they're starting the ACM, which is the Association of Computing and Machinery, hosts Collegiate Programming Challenge, and so it starts at the I guess the regional level. So the Southeast United States is one region. North Africa, I believe, is a region. Basically, the entire world is divided according to population. And if you do well in your region, you can move on to the Intercontinental Programming Challenge, where they try to find the best programmers in the world at the collegiate level. There is Top Coder, which is another competition for trying to test your mettle against other programmers. And this is, yet a third one, the Google Code Jam. This one's particularly exciting. It comes around once a year. There's many different puzzles, at all different levels, and they some of the prizes get serious. I mean, they have a $10,000 top prize, just cash.
Nice.
But yeah, I mean, you could also bet that Google will be, sort of interested in the people who win and follow, and is going to try to follow them, throughout their career.
So is this open to just regular working people or just to college students?
Oh, good point. Yeah, so I believe the Google Code Jam is open to everyone. Yeah, that's right. So, according to Google, if you are the code version of a ninja trying to master your grappling hook, or a chess grandmaster, or a Taoist philosophers, explaining the deep truths of the world to your followers, if you're like that, but on the coding plane,
Wow.
so I guess that extends to everybody.
Nice.
You can participate in this. And, Patrick and I have both done programming competitions in college, and I've continued on, judging and writing problems and things like that. And I can tell you it's a lot of fun. It's a great way to meet some extremely talented people, and also to sort of, hone your skills and to learn, more about programming.
And it's a nice slice of humble pie.
Yeah, definitely. There's
Unless you're
always
that one
someone
person
better.
who's just awesome and amazing, and we all envy you and wish we were you, and you do really well at everything you do. Yeah, you'll probably end up eating a big slice of humble pie when you think your ninja, amazing, awesome stealth skills, and show up on one of these things and get smacked down by the 17, 18-year-old kid who's just a programming rock star.
Yeah, definitely. There's people who just have extraordinary talent, and but I think that everybody, regardless of neither of us are at that level, and probably many of you at home aren't best of the best, but you could always improve and get better.
Definitely take it as a challenge. Rise
Yeah.
to the occasion and say, I'm gonna learn and get better and show them who's boss.
That's right. Yeah,
We might not do 3-on-3 basketball down the street, but
that's right.
could do some coding ninja.
You can go baseline, take it to the hoop with your C++ and Python and the different things that you've learned on the show. And one other thing too is just I feel like a big part of it is being able to just write code quickly. I mean, that is one of those things, often, many of us work 40-hour-a-week jobs, and we have, the luxury of spending a day kind of thinking about how we're going to tackle a problem. And often the things we work on take months, so they require, an architecture. But this is a unique opportunity where someone gives you 15 minutes to write something that you're just going to throw away, in an hour or so once it's done. And just being able to consolidate your thoughts and just put them out in the code, that is just a really awesome skill to have, and it's a lot of fun to execute.
Yeah, definitely. I think there's a balance there. Getting code done fast and getting it done right.
Yeah.
And it's good to make sure you have both sides of that coin.
Yeah, definitely.
That's good.
So I guess I think you have some news on Facebook, right?
Oh, yeah. So saw the last couple of days that Facebook open sourced its server architecture, its data center, how it does. So all of these big web companies serve up, I guess millions, billions of pages a day, and it takes a lot of big iron workstations. So I guess big iron is mainframes and stuff. So it's a wrong term there. But a lot of very large servers and very big data centers to do the kind of processing that they need to be able to provide the services that are, their bread and butter. And so there's a lot of black magic, trade secrets that go into exactly how you do stuff, because little things become a big deal. So
yeah, just to put it in perspective, I have the Facebook statistics up, so that they have more than 500 million active users. So and then it says 50% of our active users log into Facebook in any given day. So think about that. In one day, 250 million different people go to Facebook and do something, different. At least they're going to look at their own page, which is completely different, almost entirely. And then, they might do some things that are shared, but for the most part, they're all, creating content, looking at content of people in their neighborhood, and that the magnitude of the amount of data and the amount of information that they have to pass these
and
people is
different
huge.
than even a Google search or serving up a static web page or just a regular web blog or something. I mean, Facebook has a lot of rights to their databases and to their things, and that's a whole different architecture and art that goes on to that. So these data centers, they have things that normally we would take for granted, like how close you are to a power generation plant. So they try to locate a lot of these next to really cheap sources of power, because it makes a big difference. So in cities with large hydroelectric dams and stuff like that, that allows them to get the energy really cheap. And even cutting unnecessary things out of their motherboards and off their off their server racks that aren't needed to save that last little few watts of power makes a big difference when you're talking thousands upon thousands of machines running and keeping them cool. So I was reading they don't use air conditioning like normal. They use they spray a mist of water that evaporates, and the evaporation makes the air cooler, and then they blow air through that and use that to do the cooling for these data centers. And it's very interesting. And Facebook, I guess, has been talking about that they even use the heat that's generated in the server room to heat the other parts of their building during the cooler months, so they don't have to run heaters and stuff. And so these server rooms can get pretty hot. All this energy going in, it can be expensive. So anything they can do to save money, to save power, which ends up leading to money, to do things faster, do more with less, is a good thing. And so people are kind of saying, well, why did Facebook open source this if it's so proprietary, if it's so important to how they do things? What's the incentive there to open source that? And so there's speculation abounds. Of course, one is just to give back. So a lot of these websites at least start off on open source stacks of software. So some people are trying to say, well, maybe they're just trying to put that in the hardware and say, let's open source this. Another, Jason pointed out earlier in his talk about patents, is that if Facebook can release kind of an open book on how to do data centers, and they can get other people who are small like them. So I think Facebook currently is some tenth the size of Google in terms of money and earnings and stuff. I don't remember the exact number. I'm probably completely off on that. But they're not as big or as established as Google. So Google's had time to go build all of their web servers up and get everything together and have it made their way. Facebook's kind of trying to move more aggressively and doesn't have that inertia behind it to get that stuff done. So one way they can outmaneuver the other guys, Microsoft and Google and Twitter and whoever, right, is to say, like, hey, let's open source this. Let's get people to cooperate with us. And then they, help define the standard, and they win in the end because they're helping others, and then other people contribute back and give new ideas and bring more to the party. And as a group, multiple companies work together to make a bigger entity than their enemies, basically. Well, not the actual enemies, but
it's really interesting because it's sort of the inverse of what traditionally happens, which is let's say Linksys, for example. So Linksys wants to sell the router, they want to sell the hardware, and they'll give you the firmware updates and all the software updates for free because they want to sell this piece of equipment. And as we move more to a sort of service-oriented industry, we're going to find exactly the opposite of that, where the hardware and the actual infrastructure doesn't really matter, and they can give all of those secrets away for free. But what is important is the service that they're providing and the user base.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's a new approach, and I like to kind of open source this stuff. This is interesting, and putting that into new areas. Another thing, a little off topic, but some open source electronics that are interesting, like hobby electronics. So there's like the Arduino or some other people who do kind of open embedded devices.
BeagleBoard.
The BeagleBoard. There's another one, the Panda Board. Those
Gumsticks.
are by TI. I don't know if the Gumsticks is, how open are they?
They use Angstrom Linux.
Okay, so running it, but even to the point of some of these, like the BeagleBoard and the Arduino, are open source, like the actual, they'll give you all the stuff necessary to make your own boards if you want.
Oh, like the pin layout.
Like the pins layout, the PCB screens, whatever. I'm getting way outside of my area of expertise there. But this is a really interesting thing because in the past, that's how you make it, right? Yeah. So, people might say, well, release the open source to this, but it's not really necessarily all that valuable. But these guys are releasing everything. So if you wanted, you could just do it the same. I think they still protect some things, like you can't call it an Arduino if you don't have permission from them or whatever, just so that the idea is being that people don't make inferior products or cut corners or do stuff wrong and then still be able to use the name. But yeah, they kind of release everything and make it gets better because of that. You build up a community around it, and then it's able to be better than if you spent time and effort on your own. And so it's plus you get goodwill. from
Yeah.
the community at large. People who say, "Oh, we like that you do this. This is a good idea," right? And so then they kind of like you, they buy it from you, they support you, even though financially it doesn't make a lot of sense because somebody else could do it and do it cheaper. But they want to go to you because you did this, like you did something awesome and nice.
Right. And the community is a really important word because, really ultimately that's what Facebook is all about. It's about the fact that they have this gigantic user base, is 250 million users a day. And even if the source code to Facebook, say, got leaked out, you wouldn't see just 10 Facebooks pop up with 500 million users. I mean, they have like dominated that community, and as long as they're providing good service, there's just there's so much momentum there. And so by open sourcing something, you can generate a lot of excitement. I mean, everyone wants to try something if it's free, and if they think that they can make it better, even more so. And so you can establish yourself as sort of like a dominant figure in technique X. So if you're out there and you are really into I don't know, like autonomous fishing. I'm just making something up, and not the pH fishing, but actual fishing, like with a robot arm. Then
a rod and reel.
Yeah,
and
that's
real
right.
Water.
Yeah, and not like
and real sun outside.
No grandma credit card numbers or anything.
Oh.
But you could open source all your autonomous robot fishing software, and then you could be sort of on top of the world there, and that
the robot fishing king.
Yeah, that's right. And that could sort of carry you through that. You could make money by just being the authority in that area.
Interesting, doing consulting and doing other stuff.
Right.
Yeah, making appearances because of your pure awesomeness.
Yeah, and then you can invent the fishing language, and then Google will hire you.
And then we'll talk about you.
Yeah. Oh man, this is great.
This is good.
We need to get someone who knows how to fish.
Get that, ladies and gentlemen. Get that started. That's really interesting. Oh, before I forget, we have some reviews in iTunes, or at least one we know about. And the username. Let's give them a shout out.
Yeah, let me see.
Open it up.
Find it.
Let's fire it up. Let's give them a thanks. Somebody wrote us a nice review, and we've gotten some comments before on our blog. Now we're getting some reviews on iTunes. Thank you guys for doing that. We recently checked how many downloads did we have of our first 2 episodes?
We had 152.
152. That's nice, but I think we can do better. Come on, team. Share it with your friends. Tell about the awesomeness that is Programming Throwdown.
Yeah.
And we'll see if we can't get these numbers to go up a little to make this show kind of a cool thing. We like it. We enjoy it. I think we're having a good time, and I hope you guys are too. So write us, let us know if you like it. Tell us what you would like to see, hear about topics, languages you'd like to cover. Maybe you've invented a language. Let us know, and we're just interested to hear from you guys. And talking about open source and community. I guess as a goal, but we like to be able to make this kind of a community thing, and have feedback from our fans, and from not be just about Jason and I, but about the community at large. It'd be kind of cool,
Yeah,
be a part of that. And
if you guys have any requests for any particular languages or anything you're interested in, if you want to sort of change the format, or if you want to, if you are really an expert on a particular language and would like to chime in and be a guest host or something like that, feel free to shoot us an email at programmingthrowdown@gmail.com and give us your feedback.
Yeah, or if you don't like what we say and you want to have a debate on the air so we can tell you how awesome we are and throw it down, that'd be good. If you don't like the way Jason sounds and you think we should vote him off the show.
No.
No, I'm just teasing. We love you, Jason.
Oh, thanks, man.
So,
okay, we got it's DEFTEO, DEFTEO. So, thanks for the love.
He says, "Love the podcast!" Explanation? Oh, just one exclamation point. I thought there was multiple ones.
Oh,
that was a fake out. I thought there was 2. I got excited. 2 exclamation
That's right.
points.
No, you know what? This is radio. There's 4 exclamation
oh,
points.
Yeah. And if you see anything different, that's because it got edited between now and then.
Yeah. I think he's editing it right now, actually, and making it 1.
Oh no, we're
That's
going down
okay.
in exclamation marks.
That's right. But before he does that, he's gonna make it 8. So, anyways, if you guys like the podcast, definitely give us some feedback. We really appreciate it. You can post on the blog. You can post within iTunes. So that's all good stuff.
All right, so tool of the bye week, Jason.
Tool of the bye week. So my tool is Microsoft Dependency Walker. And
is this like an old person walker? Like the thing with the tennis balls on the bottom?
It does. There are tennis balls, but they're the kind of tennis balls you want to throw at your computer, and they're bricks.
Playing tennis with bricks.
Yeah. Usually when you feel like playing tennis with bricks or just running your head into a brick wall, that's a time when it's time to break out Microsoft Dependency Walker, because
Okay, all right.
DLLs are there's the common phrase DLL hell, which originated from Windows 98 and just the disaster it was back then, and it's gotten a little better but not substantial. So this is the magic of Dependency Walker. If you ever run a program and it says, error, this function not found in OpenGL.dll, or error, direct3D function not called, something very bizarre, one of these, message box pop-ups that happens like before your program even starts running. This is probably because of a bad DLL on your machine. Especially if this is a program that you downloaded, some program someone else made, like a game or some app that you assume has been tested by the person who you bought it from. You could assume that it's probably something on your computer. It becomes very difficult then to isolate that. So how do you know what version of OpenGL.dll you have, or what version you need, or where that file actually is on your computer? Because it could be anywhere in your path. So what Dependency Walker does is you give it an executable, and it goes through and starts to load the executable. And every time the exe asks for a DLL, it goes through and recursively, puts that DLL in this list, and then asks the DLL, hey, what DLLs do you need? And it keeps tracing down. It builds this tree structure of all these DLLs with the version number and the functions. And if any of the functions are like mismatched or wrong, it'll tell you exactly which ones and where they are. And this becomes really important when you get those just absolutely bizarre errors at the startup of your application.
No, you never get bizarre errors on Windows. That never happens. Never.
Yeah, really, you get just the weirdest errors on every OS on startup. Let's say you're running Excel and you're editing some graph and you cause something crazy to happen. You try to edit too much data, or you find some bug in Excel. It'll usually crash, and it'll have some nice, send this report to Microsoft, or Firefox crashes. It has this whole bug system that goes across the internet. But if something crashes in the beginning, like on startup, yeah, you get nothing. It's like that error -1 that you get on your Apple II or whatever. I mean, it's just brutal, and it seems hopeless.
Your computer has dysentery.
That's right.
Oh no! All right, I just derailed Jason now. So he's rolling on the floor, literally.
When your computer has serious intestinal problems, you bust out this Dependency Walker. And,
Pepto-Bismol.
That's right.
Oh, Dependency Walker is the Pepto-Bismol for your DLL needs.
Yeah, when it takes the dump out of DLL for sure. I think that one of the important things too, Dependency Walker, is letting you know when you have things installed in non-standard locations. So sometimes you'll install a game and you'll restart your computer and something will be fundamentally wrong with your entire computer. Like your Aero desktop won't work, or something very bizarre will happen. It's good to run that Dependency Walker and realize, it installed this OpenGL.dll, and now Windows itself wants to use this crazy DLL instead of the original, and it helps you sort through all those hard to fix problems.
Yeah, it sounds like something definitely to have there. Not everyday tool, but definitely something to have at your disposal for those really sticky, annoying situations.
Yep.
Good pick.
Yeah, and one last part on Dependency Walker is if you're writing applications, so you're on the other end of it, you're a developer and you want to make an application that's not going to throw up when it runs on someone else's computer.
Which is a good thing to have as a goal.
Yeah, I mean, you don't want to spread dysentery.
You don't want code jam all over everybody else's computers.
That's right. So you can run Dependency Walker on an exe you made, and it'll return and say, hey, this exe you made, it needs, this version of OpenGL, and it needs DirectX 2011.dll. So you can infer, if I give this to somebody and he hasn't updated his DirectX in a year, that it's not going to work. And so you can really get a handle on how to deploy software using this program.
Nice. So what does it do if it errors and says, I need DirectX 2013?
Right. So if you if we went with Patrick to the future where he bought this microphone and used DirectX 13, brought it back to the present and ran Dependency Walker on it, it would try to match up the current version of DirectX. But if there was some function that didn't exist in DirectX 2011, or if it just couldn't match them because the names weren't, they changed the name of the DLL or something like that, it'll actually point at the specific function or the specific file it's missing.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So it doesn't make any recommendations though about how to fix it.
No,
it's a little lower level than that.
It'll make like high level recommendations like you're missing this DLL file, or this DLL file is missing this particular function. And from there, you can, even without knowing what that function does, at a high level you can say, DirectX.dll is missing a function. Let me update my DirectX.
Oh, that's a good point. Yeah, reinstall.
Yeah, that's right. Or just download the latest Windows updates or whatever. Yeah.
Nicely done.
Cool.
All right.
So what's your tool of the bye week?
My tool of the bye week is Keepass, spelled K-E-E pass. And we'll put that in the show notes.
So is this that thing that you needed to use to go to the bathroom without getting detention in elementary school? Or was that...
No, that's a P-Pass.
Oh, that's P... Oh, okay.
I don't know. We didn't have to have one of those at my school. That's
Actually,
pretty intense.
We had this is no joke, a fully sized, like, real toilet seat. And you had to carry the, hopefully unused toilet seat with you into the bathroom,
because there wasn't one there. Like,
no,
you
there
had to
was.
Bring your own toilet seat.
Oh no, there was a toilet seat.
BYOT test.
You brought basically if you were walking in the hall with a toilet seat, no one questioned you. Like, it was assumed that you were going to the bathroom. So each classroom had I think just the history teachers were in on this, but each history teacher had a toilet seat under their desk. And if you needed to use the bathroom, and it had a chain, so you could hold it without having to touch the seat.
So you had to be handcuffed to the toilet seat.
That's right. So if you were willing to be handcuffed to the toilet seat, you could avoid wetting yourself in history class.
Wow, this is pretty intense, man. I got to think about this for a minute.
Yeah, this is
not. I thought this was maybe going somewhere else and we were going to lose our clean tag, but okay.
Oh no. No.
So yeah, all right. Wait, no, this has nothing to do with toilets. Unless there's an unless here. Unless you are awesome and you put a passcode on your bathroom.
Oh, I've seen
to prevent
those.
unauthorized usage by, maybe if you live with your family or siblings, or maybe if you're still in high school or whatever, maybe it would be a good thing to put a lock on the bathroom so you could control access to it. That'd be good.
I've seen those really. Have you seen those really fancy toilets in Japan? Like, they have ones that have video games built in. They have ones that all sorts of. Maybe there's one out there
circling the
that
toilet.
needs a Keepass.
Okay, we are completely making anybody who contributes to the Keepass project really upset at us right now. I'm so sorry.
Oh, man.
All right, so Keepass is an open source project. Man, we can't do these live together anymore. This is just not good. All right, the Keepass project is an open source project to do being basically a password vault. So we all know, come on, let's be honest, you don't make the best passwords ever. People think they do, you don't. And you're using the same one for 20,000 different things. So instead of doing that, one option, right, and a lot of people discourage this at work, and even at home, it's generally a bad idea to write your password down. But what if the trade-off there is if you write your password down, you're not going to forget it. So you can make it really secure so that somebody would actually have to break into your house before they'd be able to get your passwords. But this kind of gives you the best of that world of being able to have really secure passwords that have to be written down because they're so complicated, and the ability to not worry about somebody breaking in. And that is basically you create one really nice ultra secure password to lock up what amounts to kind of like a vault, a file that's going to store all your other passwords. So you make one really, really good one, and then you go in there and it's able to create, accounts and usernames and passwords, and it'll auto-generate it, and you can even set the rules because different websites have different rules. You can set them to like I think they can even set them to like notify you that it's going to expire or something, so it'll have you change them. So if you wanted to, for instance, Gmail never has your password expire, but it's probably a good idea to change your password every so often. So you have Keepass alert you that your password needs to be changed, and it does some cool features. At least I don't think it's Windows only, but I'm not really sure on that. But I know on Windows it'll do something really nice where like if you right click on once you unlock your vault, and they offer all sorts of very nice options for authentication and multi-factor authentication to get in. But if you unlock your vault and you have your username and password, you can right-click and copy your username on like an entry, or right-click and say copy your password, then be able to paste it. And then after a few moments, it'll actually go back and overwrite your password in memory, get rid of it, so that it doesn't stay in your keyboard to be gotten by other things later. So that's kind of a really nice feature, and then you can close it when you're done. And again, it's pretty useful. What I use it for is those those websites and it's really good when you create a website that you're not going to remember the username and password for, and it's like something really silly that you don't care if it gets broken into, but they require you to have a 10-digit password with a special character, uppercase, lowercase, numerical values, and all this stuff. And then you're going to forget it. And so what you do is you can go ahead and just create an entry in here, have it auto-generate it for you, and then just paste it in, and then you won't forget it. It'll just be there. And then you can back it up to, for instance, a Dropbox or to a USB stick. And my intention, I haven't done this yet, but I still plan to, is to share this between my wife and I, so that if something were to happen to me or to her, I'd want her to be able to get into my stuff. And everybody's got their own little quirks and differences between how they handle sharing passwords between husband and wife. But certain things I would like my wife to be able to get at if something happened to me, or if she needed to take care of something, or if I'm on travel and she needs to help me out with something. So if she has the password and shares a file with me and we keep it up to date, then she'll be able to get at my stuff and find it. And that's a good way to keep it secure and not have to share it in the open.
So how does this work? So you have your master key.
Yep, your master key.
You go to a website. Let's say I go to foo.com.
All right.
And foo.com says I want you to create a username and password.
Yep.
So what do you do from there?
So there are ones that are more automated, but they typically tend to be integrated in with your browser, which of course becomes a problem if you're on multiple computers, or if you use like me, I use a ton of different browsers just to switch it up. I don't know why. But what you do is, so you go there, right, and then you say, I got to create a username and password. So my workflow is then I'll go start up Keepass. I'll type in my master password, which is nice and secure, and no, I'm not going to tell you. And then what it does is I can right click in it or go to an option, basically say create new entry. Tell it the website name, so like foo.com. Tell it my username I want, so Patrick. And then what I do is I can have it generate a password for me, and I have just default rules. It's a really nice long password that whatever. Or you can just type in your own password and then save it, and it'll remember the entry for you. So then later, instead of having to do the password recovery for this website you go to once every 3 years or whatever, you can just go back to Keepass and look it up.
Oh, I see. So now you come back the next day and you want to log into foo.com. So you put foo.com in a Keepass and hit, recall or something. I guess.
Well, it just has a list. Yeah, it has a list of all the entries you have.
Okay.
You might be able to search, or you can categorize them. And, it's pretty flexible. And, you basically can just right-click on the entry and say copy username, copy password, or you can open it up and, unmask the password, have it show you what the password is, or, a variety of different things there. It's pretty flexible, and I find it to be very nice. And it's open source, so the idea is that it's been looked at by a lot of people and should be secure. It's not going to steal your passwords, and it's free. Yeah. There are other ones that you have to pay for, but I like this one because it's open source, so hopefully people have checked this out and made sure that it's really nice and secure, and they're not making bad assumptions or going to let your passwords leak out, especially if you're going to put all your passwords in. And I still, as much as I should trust, I don't necessarily trust it for things like that, like my bank login and password. I tend to just try to memorize.
Yep.
But for a lot of other stuff that isn't as important but still is kind of important, I think it's a good thing to use.
So does Keepass have a browser plugin where it would like autocomplete or anything like that?
I don't know.
Okay. I'll check it out.
Yeah, it might have some integration. The way I use it, I don't. Maybe it would, though. That would be very powerful, I guess. It'd be interesting.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Just guessing, throwing stuff in the dark.
Maybe we should submit it on their feedback box or something.
Yeah, that's right. So you said it's open source?
It's open source, so we could contribute it.
That's right. I mean, we can go in and do that. It wouldn't be bad at all.
But yeah, so that's my tool of the bye week. Is Keepass. Check it out.
Yeah, that sounds awesome. Yeah, and it looks like there is a at least a Firefox extension for Keepass.
Oh, nice.
So, yeah, it's good stuff. Cool.
All right, so time for our programming language of the bye week.
That's right. So this time we're doing Erlang.
That's fun to say. Erlang. Oh, it should be pirates use Erlang.
I think pirates just use R.
Oh. That's a statistics language.
Yeah, pirates, well, they have to divvy up all the booty, and there's probably like 200 people that have to get a share. So.
Interesting. Nice.
Yeah.
Okay, but
I think Erlang is more from that song where everybody wants cake on their birthday. I think that's really where it was. Right?
Wow.
Is that right? Is that the history of Erlang?
I don't think so.
Oh.
So I think the history of Erlang is the way it goes down is I guess a lot of these things are shrouded in mystery. Or just forgotten. But no, so seriously, I guess Erlang's supposed to stand for Ericsson language.
Right.
It was developed by Ericsson, the telecommunications company, and it gets its roots there in doing telecommunications type software. So think, like packet switching routers and that kind of interesting fun stuff, which is, very high bandwidth, very, necessary for fault tolerance. You're going to, try to be doing tons and tons of things all at once and, do it as minimal amount of hardware as you have to. And so in that way, it kind of led to a lot of the requirements that were used to make it what it is, which is a highly concurrency-oriented functional programming language that's just recently seems to be picking up a lot of steam. I guess it's been around, without it up in front of me, I think 1999. And
1986 is when it appeared.
I was
shocking.
way off.
Yeah, do you know the interesting thing?
It was released at open source as 1998. Sorry, that's what
I see.
Go ahead.
The reason why Erlang is more popular now is because in 2006 they added multiprocessing support. So basically, what Erlang does now is essentially, we'll talk about this more, as we start talking about the language. But in the past, it was broken up into several different. When you write your program, it's broken up into several different pieces. But all of these pieces just ran one at a time in sort of a queue, like asynchronously, but just one at a time. And in 2006, they added multiprocessing support, where several different pieces of your code could run at the same time, and that made Erlang an extremely powerful language when it came to running on these multi-core and many-core machines that we have today.
Interesting. So. Functional programming language. We talked about C and Python so far. Those are both imperative languages. Mm-hmm. Erlang is a functional language. So what it... Oh, we could spend forever talking about this, but in short, one or two sentences, what's a functional programming language?
Yeah, so I guess, the simple way of explaining it is if you're familiar to C or C++ or Python or Java or many of the languages that we've discussed on the podcast before, you're used to sort of the commands or the programming end of it, or the logic and the data. So the idea is that you have some global memory with your classes and your structs and your arrays and things like that, and then you have functions which go through call other functions or just are in some kind of a while true going on in your main loop, and they're acting on that data. So functional programming is a very different model. In functional programming, you don't really have data just sitting out there to be accessed. But each function passes in data. So in other words, your main function gets passed in the command line arguments. That's true even of C++. But there's no global memory. That's it. That's all you get. And then you can, create some things inside of that main function and pass those to other functions. But it's not like there's data just sitting out there waiting to be utilized. So that's really the thing that separates functional programming from the more data-driven languages like C and Python.
So, yeah, I guess it has a lot of implications for Erlang being so concurrent and a lot of the problems that creep up in traditional, with quotes there that you can't see because you're listening on the radio. But, the traditional languages there, have problems with the data that's hanging around and you're able to access it. And make changes, and that causes race conditions and problems with needing mutexes all over the place and controlling how and who can access stuff so that you don't end up modifying different things from different places and getting unintended results because you're trying to do multiple things at once.
Right, like in C++, to use some example, let's say you're making I don't know, some kind of football game, American football game, and you have players running around. You have a quarterback, a football, a stadium. These are all classes in your C++ in your architecture. So, one of the football players, his position might be affected as a result of one of the other players. He might get tackled or he might get bumped, and that might move his position. His position might also be affected by himself. He might be running, and that might be causing his position to change. So, in C++, you can never really be sure, especially in a multiprocessing environment, that your position, that no one else is bumping you and modifying your position. That information's out there up for grabs, and you can structure C++, like you said, using mutexes and semaphores and things like that to and message passing, to sort of restrict it and say, look, if you want to alter my position, you have to tell me, and I'm going to actually be the one mutating the position. You can just give me hints, but ultimately, you're dealing with, at the low level like C and C++, you're dealing with just bits and bytes, and there's nothing stopping someone else from going in and doing whatever they want with your data. So Erlang, by contrast, doesn't have data just sitting out there. Everything is part of a function. It's either a parameter to a function or it was created inside of a function. And as you pass data from one function to the other, you actually, capsulize the data into a message and pass that message.
Message passing.
Yep. Message passing is what Erlang's all about. So you call a function with 2 as a parameter. What it actually does is, puts 2 in an envelope, sends it over to that function.
An actual envelope?
That's right, an actual envelope. Actually, what it does is it sends the number 2.
So they're the people still sending mail in the post office.
That's right. It sends a number 2 with a toilet seat attached to his wrist over to your function. Where
too much potty humor.
Oh no. Where that function can then be waiting for him. So this is also called the actor model. So do you want to try and give that a shot? What do you know about that?
The actor model, right? So this is there's all sorts of ways to deal with concurrency and what amounts to shared state. So if you try to, and Jason was trying to get this, with the description of the football players, but anytime you try to share state between multiple processes that need to, both read and modify. So one way is to deal, and you learn about this in textbooks and stuff, but producer consumer. So if you got somebody producing something and only one other person consuming it, world is happy, or at least, straightforward. But when you end up with multiple producers and multiple consumers and, consumers can also produce and producers can also consume, things get, more hairy. And it becomes a little harder to deal with that shared state. And the more shared state you have, the more chance you have to mess something up and not be careful enough. Mm-hmm. And so what the actor model says is instead of allowing shared state, we're basically going to forbid it. And that's going to cause some interesting implications, both good and bad, in that if you don't share state, shared state is really fast. This is basically you just access memory like it's yours, and everybody does the same. And so that's really fast, but it's dangerous. So what the actor model says, let's get rid of that, and let's basically say the only way to talk to another piece of code is through a mailbox, like you were talking about, and sending a message to it. And then it can determine when it wants to talk about that message, how it wants to handle it, and then what it wants to do. And so actors, basically boil down to really simply, they're able to receive messages, handle the responses locally, generate other messages, generate other actors, and then that's kind of pretty much it. They're not really affecting state, at least not a shared state. And so you're able to kind of you need a little more careful planning, but you're able to worry less about the multi-processing, multiple threads, concurrent states of your stuff because you've kind of encapsulated in this way and very much defined the interactions in a way that if you can get your stuff to fit that paradigm, kind of eliminate the worry about having a lot of the issues that are common with other ways of doing concurrent programming.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, sometimes you would think as people have been doing a lot of programming in C and C++, you'll kind of have this thought experiment where you'll say to yourself, life would be so easy if all of my classes were just, a map of strings to, different data. So in other words, if I could actually get at the different members of the class, if I could say, instead of saying, my class dot x equals 3, my class dot y equals 4, if I could just say, look, everything in my class is 3, or both things are 3. If you could do things on like a programmatic perspective. And so, Python kind of does that in the sense that like classes are really dictionaries in Python. And so it kind of is an extrapolation of that thought experiment. So going back to Erlang, it's sort of the idea where, in C++ we have all these different classes, and the classes are good at, representing different data. So, my football player class has my football player's location, and that's very modular in the sense that the football class only has the football's location. It doesn't have the player's locations in it as well. So that keeps it very compartmentalized. But the logic C++ really lets you go wild with the logic, or in a lot of these imperative languages. Like you could have the football player movement in the football class because you just have access to all this data. So Erlang is sort of taking the other approach, taking it all the way to the extreme, where it's like, what if everyone had their own data and their own logic and operated independently? What does that mean? If we extrapolate that, if we take that all the way to the extreme, how does that change our way of thinking, and how does that change the kind of programs we write?
Yeah, I think it's going to become more and more important to have these alternative tools in the toolbox as we move to a more multi-processor future.
Right, that's an excellent point. I mean, a big problem right now is being able to do concurrent programming, being able to run two things at the same time. And it's because the logic can so easily get conflated. If the football is modifying the football players' positions and they're modifying their own positions, now you have, as Patrick mentioned, a race condition where you have two things modifying the same data at the same time. And that causes very unpredictable results. I mean, you might be assuming that your position isn't changing in this one function where you calculate something based on position. And all of a sudden, in the middle of that function, it changes. And that causes your program to act in a way that you didn't expect and causes crashes and things like that. So rather than have to sort of dwell on these things and try and compartmentalize everything yourself and possibly screw it up, we can use something like Erlang where it's a little bit more strict on the logic and sort of, forces you to think a certain way.
So forcing you to think this different way, we look for some links for you guys for learning Erlang. So we found this awesome website. It's Learn You Some Erlang for Great Good.
That's right. It's learnyousomeerlang.com is the domain name.
How do you like their little mascot there, the little logo?
It was pretty epic. Yeah, you guys should definitely check out the front page of that. I think it's a squid who's using eight different computers at the same time or something.
Oh, it's also reading the book about itself.
Oh, that's awesome. If he was on the cover of the book, it could be, recursive, but it's not.
No,
sadly.
I guess he's just reading about Erlang.
Yeah. But one other thing about Erlang.
Oh, sorry. Yep, go ahead.
Is so you have these different objects, and one thing that we didn't completely cement this idea, but because we've separated the logic and we've separated the data into all these different objects, they're all able to run at the same time. And that's really what gives Erlang the concurrency. The football player is able to update his position and do his AI and his calculations and whatever, and the football is able to do the projectile motion as it's being thrown independently without you as a programmer saying, all right, you guys can both run at the same time. The system does that for you. It automatically knows what things can run at the same time, and it runs them all at the same time. That's what gives Erlang such a great performance in this multi-core world.
Yeah. So we talk about libraries. I guess the standard library equivalent for Erlang is called the OTP, So
Yep.
sometimes you'll see this even if you go look to download Erlang, it'll be the Erlang like Erlang slash OTP or something. And what OTP stands for is Open Telecom Platform, and that's the open source library that includes a lot of the common things you'd want to do and want to use. And so that's kind of like the included part, the batteries, as it were, for like we talked about last week, for Erlang that give it able to do stuff more than just the basic necessities. Do people use Erlang for stuff besides just telecommunications?
Yeah, so I think Erlang is used in CouchDB, right? The
Yeah.
NoSQL database. I believe it's also used in Wings 3D, which is a 3D modeling tool.
Yep.
Do you have any?
RabbitMQ, which is an implementation of the I'm going to say AMQP, the protocol for message passing. So right there, getting back to its telecom roots, but able to do really fast, really reliable, fault tolerant message passing. So AMQP, did I get the order right?
Yeah, you did.
Yeah, so it's an implementation of that. So it's used, and this will parlay into the next where it's used, but able to do really high numbers of message passing and routing. And they use this, we've talked about a couple times, with the high frequency trading guys and finance guys
right.
use that. And we talked, was it last time, about the guy who stole code from Goldman Sachs?
Yeah, that's right.
Actually stole Erlang code is the thing there, or I guess
Nice.
alleged, right? I don't know what the result of that is.
I think he went to jail, so I think
he went
he's
to jail. Yeah, we
convicted.
did say that.
Yeah.
So convicted. So that was involving Erlang code because that's part of their high frequency trading stuff. It's used more than just telecom stuff. So the Goldman Sachs stuff, the 3D modeling, the document store database. I mean, those are kind of things that are a little bit different than just what you would think is message routing. It's also used by, and I don't have it on here right in front of me, but the 2600 Hertz project does some voice over IP stuff. So think like Skype replacement / if you don't know what Asterisk is, which is an open PBX. So kind of doing, and this gets beyond what I understand, but doing telecommunications voice stuff for enterprise stuff, but doing it open source and free, and able give people the ability to kind of control their own telephone system. And so they use it, which fits in with its nice telecommunications background.
Yeah, and so this actually, the more broad point here is that in the end, you can do just about anything in any language, and
if your frustration tolerance is high enough.
Yeah, that's true. And Erlang is no doubt no exception. If you go on the Wikipedia site for Erlang, or you start reading the tutorials, you'll realize that Erlang is vast, or any functional language, Prolog, Lisp, etc., is vastly different from C, C++, and the imperative languages that you may be used to. And it might seem like things are impossible. How can you write a serious large-scale app without global data? It sounds like an impossible thing, a possible task, but you would be amazed that all it takes is just a shift in paradigm and a shift in thinking, and you can do anything in Erlang or any of these languages.
And we're big proponents of that. I mean, part of what we're doing here is try to get people to embrace that alternative ways of thinking, even if you don't end up using Erlang in your day-to-day job. If you go out and play with it on the weekend, the evenings, and find this brain-twisting stuff and make it through it, you're going to learn some new ways to look at problems, and maybe it will apply even in using C and C++. Maybe you'll look at a new way to solve a problem that you've been working on, or something that was hard to tackle, and now you got kind of a way to do it.
So here's my chance to sort of grill you. You're on the hot seat.
No. I was trying to avoid this all podcast long.
So what was Erlang first programmed in? I mean, now I'm pretty sure it's in C or something, but what was it in the beginning?
So is this 1986?
Right.
1986. Oh man, programming history. So is it something weird?
It's another functional language.
Prolog?
You got it. Erlang was originally implemented in Prolog, which is
interesting.
Yeah, which is short for Pro Logic, I believe, right? Or actually,
well, it's not much shorter than.
I think it's. Let me see here. Blah blah blah.
Prolog is short for.
I think it is Prologic.
All right, well, he looks that up. That's interesting. So that's something we haven't really talked about. That if you're going to write a language, you got to write it in something else.
Yeah.
So either I guess assembly, because you could write it in machine code, directly if you're at a high frustration tolerance and really want to take a long time. But yeah, so you write it. Some languages end up what's called bootstrapping. So, C wasn't first written in C, but then eventually they got to the point where you could write the C compilers in C itself and bootstrap it.
Yep.
But, we also didn't talk about the fact that Erlang runs in a virtual machine.
Oh, yeah,
not directly on the hardware. So that's 2 virtual machine programming languages in a row. All right, did you figure it out? What
well, apparently Prolog doesn't stand for anything. So
fail, Jason. You're getting closer to being voted off.
Oh no!
You put me in the hot seat and then you failed.
I know. That's
just turn the tables.
You have to. Now you have a chance to double dare. You can double hot seat.
Oh no! I don't think I'll be that mean. Can I take the high road?
You can. You can take the high road.
I'm gonna take the high road. I choose that
for 100. But yeah, so Erlang is implemented in Prolog, which is another functional language, and Prolog is somewhat similar to Erlang, but it doesn't have a lot of the sort of ease of use. I feel like Prolog is very difficult to sort of get your head around. And I did a lot of Prolog in university, so we'll definitely make a show out of that.
Okay, all right.
But
in the future.
Erlang definitely, in the same way as sort of Python makes your life easier as a developer of C or C++, Erlang definitely makes your life easier if you're a Prolog developer.
Interesting. Very good. All right. Well, is that all we got for this week?
I think so. I think that.
Just bye week.
I think we.
All right. I don't think we have picked what we're going to cover next.
No.
So opportunity for you to write in and tell us what you'd like to hear.
That's right.
And influence the future.
If you have a favorite, we have a list of languages that we want to explore. But if you have a particular language you're interested in and we haven't covered it yet, we can easily move it to the front of the queue.
Yep.
So definitely, give us any feedback, any info. Rate us on iTunes if you like the podcast.
Rate us if it's good. If it's not, just send us an email and wait till we make it better and then rate us.
That's right. Definitely subscribe so you can get the latest episodes and stay up to date and all that.
All right. If that's it, I guess we'll sign off.
Yeah, this is Jason Gauchi signing off.
And this is Patrick Wheeler. Until next bye week, that'll be it.
See you later, guys.
The intro music is Axo by Binar Pilot. Programming Throwdown is distributed under a Creative Commons Attribution Share-alike 2.0 license. You're free to share, copy, distribute, transmit the work, to remix, adapt the work, but you must provide attribution to Patrick and I, and share alike in kind.